I'm Nicole Hauser, Executive Director of the Community Free Clinic.
And when did you start in your current role for the clinic?
I started as Executive Director in November of 2018.
And did you have any interactions or work with the clinic before that as like a volunteer or a donor?
I was a donor. I've always been a donor. If the Community Free Clinic's always been a passion. Helping people was one thing that I have always been drawn to. So this was kind of a good fit for me when the position came open.
Nice. And I know you've had some experience with some other like nonprofits and organizations. Do you want to talk about any of those?
My entire career has basically been nonprofit, except for when I was in business for myself, which still is a nonprofit. I worked at Washington County Hospital before it was Meredith, when it was on the hill at Antietam. And they are actually one of the largest nonprofits in Washington County. And then I started doing a in-home daycare because my children were little, just so I could be home with them. And then I went back to work working for Greater Hagerstown Committee, which is another large nonprofit. From there I went to the Humane Society of Washington County, which is a nonprofit, and now I'm here.
Nice.
So, like I said, my entire career has basically been nonprofits.
Very cool. And why do you think that people in Washington County should care? Maybe ones that that they should care about the clinic that already have jobs or may not use our services. So what would you say to them?
The clinic sees the uninsured of Washington County, and that is, by doing that, becoming their primary care, we're taking burdens off of hospital emergency rooms, so that people who really need that emergency care are not sitting hours waiting to be seen. Because what happens is when you don't have insurance and you can't afford to pay that office visit at a normal doctor's office, you let your issues go to a point where they become an emergency. And you end up in the emergency room, which may seem like what you're there for is not as big as an emergency as, say, somebody coming in with a heart attack, and you'll sit hours and wait. So we relieve that burden and open up those spaces for individuals in the emergency room who are really there because it was an emergency situation, not something that we could have seen and prevented it getting to an emergency situation.
And the clinic has remained open during COVID. But can you talk about what the clinic's done and maybe some of the impacts that COVID have had?
We have been open the entire time. We did change the way we were seeing patients. We cut down on a lot of the patients coming into the clinic. We see our patients monthly for just medication, what we call medication checks and medication pickup. Instead of having them come in, be weighed, and having their blood pressure taken, we did basically a drive-through. Excuse me. And so we did basically a drive-through where they just pulled up out front. They called. They said, "I'm out front." We put all of our protective equipment on, and we went to them, had them sign for the medications, kind of went over real quick what they were getting, and then they were off. So it limited contact, and it limited amount of people that not only my staff was in contact with, but those who did need to come in and be seen, it limited their contact too, because we have a high risk population that we see.
Very good. And last one, since it is Washington County Gives, are there any other organizations currently working in Washington County that to give a shout out to, or that are particularly close to your heart?
Yeah, there are actually several. Of course, Brooks House is one that we work very closely with. United Way is a huge help to us. Boys and Girls Club has, we've worked with them some, and I've volunteered for some of their events. They've volunteered for our events. Humane Society of Washington County, of course, I've worked there for years, and I've had calls with them, and I've talked to to them when they need things also. So we do work closely with a lot of nonprofits, Big Brothers Big Sisters. Same thing with helping out at different events and participating in events. We like to give back to other nonprofits too, just like they give back to us.